and government contracting organizations. By leading global human capital management initiatives within countless of business environments, Jennifer has developed a career of positive impact to people and organizations through strategic change management. Great to have you, Jennifer. Our second panelist is Ms. Waialia Chase. Waialia brings more than 15 years of nonprofit and corporate experience to Leadership Montgomery. She's a skilled expert in program development and implementation with a proven track record in marketing, operations, and service, including positions as realtor, consultant, and project manager. Among her many accomplishments, Ms. Chase remains proudest of her work to establish and build the successful Affordable Care Act Health Navigator program in Montgomery and Prince George's counties. Welcome, Waialia. And finally, I'm glad to introduce Mr. Kip Ingram, who's Director of Bereavement Care at Montgomery Hospice. Kip has been the Director of Bereavement Care of Montgomery Hospice for how long, Kip? 8 years. He coordinates the staff of 8 professional grief counselors. He works regularly with many diverse communities, groups, and individuals around issues of loss, grief, and coping. He has presented his work on grief and loss at area workshops for medical and mental health professionals and local religious groups, and has written a number of articles on the subject in hospice newsletters and other places. Welcome, Kip. Really glad to be with you. So we have an ambitious agenda for today, and I'm just going to turn to our next slide and confirm that everybody can hear. I think we have enough people saying here. Oh, I missed to show you the pictures of everybody. Sorry. You can see us on your screen, and now we go to the objectives. We have 3 main objectives today. The first one is to understand the main stressors which employees experience during the holiday season. The second one is to name strategies, at least 3, for coping in the holiday season. And the last one, to strategize in ways a manager can support their staff during the holiday season. And if the participants have other thoughts or would like to learn more, please don't be shy and type your questions on that chat box. So we're going to dive into the subject. What are some of the powerful forces around the holidays which become stressful?
So from an employee perspective, I think that the primary stressors are the financial portions of the holidays, both in terms of affording whatever may come with holiday traditions that employee participates in, but also from the financial perspective of the expectations that companies also make in terms of end-of-year bonuses, salaries that may change, or even promotions that come with end-of-year activities. The other things I see employees also dealing with, of course, are just the work-related stress that has to do with a lot of the end-of-year goals and objectives in the desire to meet those, as well as planning for the upcoming year at the same time. And then a third thing that you see, of course, is the family, and how family often plays a huge part in terms of stressors, even though in many times it's a good thing to be around family around the holidays. It's also very stressful. And of course, there's also the personal family reasons that may not be as positive in terms of maybe there was a loss for that person over the course of the holidays that they also bring with them to work as well.
That should really be hard to have to experience losses during the holidays and have to come to work. Kip, do you want to talk to?
I would just say all the things that Jennifer has just mentioned adds up to a great deal more fatigue during the holiday season. I mean, people get pushed beyond their usual routines. We that. So recognizing how that stretches and pushes our sense of self can impact our work, impact how we're feeling during the holiday season. So it's important to be able to name those kinds of powerful forces that can work their way through our lives at a time like this.
And staff where we work, they become sort of our work family as well. So not only do we have the family expectations, but we have the work dynamics that are playing at the same time with high expectations. Like words of wisdom do you have, way for people who are in this turmoil of expectations?
I have a saying, and I say, get your mind right. Sometimes you got to get your mind right to have family over. You know who's coming. We love our family, but sometimes you have to mentally prepare, for that. So not only preparing to cook, clean, all of the things that you do to receive family, but mentally preparing. I would say another thing that we do is we don't talk politics, because that can get really dicey. And if we know that we want to have a good time and just stress-free, to not have those conversations, maybe, especially with the political climate that we have today. I do that at work. We do that at work as well. We don't talk politics at work, personal things like that. There's enough personal things, I think, that we can delve into and bond over. But I'd say get your mind right and stay away from topics that are hotbeds of frustration, can incite arguments and things like that.
And probably it's a good moment to draw boundaries and also take time off. Like you don't have to be on the holiday mode, plugged in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nobody can do that. So maybe it's taking breaks from all of these, knowing that you're going to have to face intense family time or intense time like that.
Well, it's important, for employees to be able to do that. And I think that as an organization and companies, it's also important that we recognize, that this last quarter for most individuals and most companies is just full of all of those things that create the perfect storm and the perfect environment for, I do celebrate Christmas, so I call it the Merry Christmas Meltdown. And even though, and this is just for me personally, and I named it this maybe about 5 years ago, where even in the role that I am and knowing that things do get busy, knowing that it's important to alleviate my stress, I know and I'm aware that the Merry Christmas Meltdown is always right around the corner. And so from an employee perspective, and I practice definitely self-care in terms of trying to keep monitor of my own personal state during these times. There's also even the stress of, as a manager, having employees that are looking towards you and having expectations when it comes to, we do bonuses around this time of the year, we have salary activities, and even being the manager who needs to communicate not just things that employees are going to hopefully be happy about, but also communicate negative information as well. And so, if you have to tell that one employee that maybe they're not getting a bonus this year, and it might not even be because of their performance, it might just be because of how the company is operating, or it could be performance. So those types of discussions also add a level of stress. And so working in an organization that provides some resources and mechanisms for me as an individual to step away and relieve stress, like wellness rooms, flexible work schedules, being located and able to go to a gym because there's gym membership, and just taking some time away to even work from home if I need to have family over and get ready for that, I think are all just great ways to help manage yourself and help your employees manage themselves through the holiday season.
Very, very important to be mindful of that. And then I'm hearing you as a manager, you need to model this behavior for other people, because sometimes we as managers, we don't realize that most of what we teach by example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not what we say, but what we do.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
drawing those lines and also taking care of ourselves so our staff can see that and give permission through our own doing to do that.
Yeah. One of the things we talk about with the Corporate Volunteer Council and our Employee Volunteer Jumpstart programs especially is buy-in from the top. When you have buy-in from the top, then your employees feel that, they see it, and they believe it. If you're just saying it, it's nice, but if you're modeling it, and they see that from the top, because that's where things begin, right? And if they see that from the top in leadership, when I say from the top, I mean leadership, when they see that leadership says, yes, we believe in giving back to the community, for instance, and this is our mission and our goal, and they see that being modeled in the programs that they're bringing to the organization, like Jennifer said, wellness groups and things like that, then the employees follow suit. And it's almost kind of a relief, and I've heard employees say that, like, okay, so this is real now. If they're saying this, they're putting things into place in our company that model what they're saying, what the mission is, okay, then we can go forward and we can get things done. And so that really matters, to have that not just in word but in deed.
Yes.
and it as much as we have stressful situations, it kind of helps to alleviate things. For instance, at Leadership Montgomery, C. Marie talks about, getting the work done. She's not going to be on our backs to get it done. She's hired us. She believes in us, to get things done that we need to get done. How we get it done is up to us, but that we get it done. It's a relief, and she models that behavior. So it's important.
And I'm guessing that there's not all of a sudden it's October, November, and
Exactly.
there's this, hey guys, we really need to start working on these new goals and objectives.
Exactly.
If there's been communication, and transparency from the beginning, and this is where, we've talked about in some of the other times that we've met about the importance of communication and setting the stage in the beginning, this is how you see it play out throughout the course of the year and throughout someone's tenure, because when it comes to times like the holidays, when there is that added layer of stress, that added layer of activity, if you've already been communicating goals, deadlines, expectations around work and performance, if you've been having communications with teams to talk about, when people can take off, when they can't, work from home and not, that added, again, layer of, from the employee perspective, oh my gosh, I have to go and ask my manager, can I take time off to go and get someone from the airport, or, the kids, don't have school right now, they're on holiday, and I really need to be home for these couple of days, or I really want to go on vacation.
Right.
If you can remove that added layer of stress that comes from just communicating those things, and the employee communicating to you, you're already ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And this is where you start way back from the very beginning when you're and being proactive.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Creating an environment that is conducive to this kind of honest conversation.
That's right.
But people respond better when they have the flexibility.
Yeah.
They actually deliver the results because you don't have the stress of how am I going to deal with this whole thing all together. So one of the things that we are also talking about here is the giving, right? During the pressure of gift giving. But before we go into that, are you aware of organizations collectively embarking in projects that are benefiting those who are in need, and what's the effect of that kind of, because I assume that we participate in some of the gift giving for We Adopt Families here at Montgomery Hospice, and every year we fulfill whatever their wish list for their families and buy all these gifts. For every member of the family, and we all feel so good about that. That has such a powerful effect. To have things like that going on at Leadership Montgomery?
Yes, we're doing, in partnership with the Kennedy Cluster and our sponsor, M&T Bank, we're doing a holiday giving program, and it will culminate in the giving party on December 18th. And but leading up to that, we have several companies around Montgomery County, and we're still accepting companies who want to do toy drives in their organizations. And we do everything. We give them the toolkit, tell them how to do it. If they can't drop it off to us at the end, then we pick it up from them. And, again, it culminates in parents coming through from Kennedy Cluster. They're paired up with a personal shopper who are volunteers and holding the bag open while they're going through their shopping for the toys for their children. And at the end of that, we have a gift wrapping station. People gift wrap the gifts for free. Each family goes home with a gift bag of groceries. And these groceries are culturally appropriate. And I think that's really important, that these groceries are things that they want and eat in their household, down to a certain kind of flour and a certain kind of beans and things like that. And we have a donor who is giving us chickens this year, which is awesome, because these families don't really eat turkeys. You know, so things like that we're paying attention to. So there, and then for teenagers, they get a $25 gift card, and each family also gets a $25 gift card. And then we have a runner who will take their groceries out and their gifts out to their car for them. And so this is done not only serving these families, but it's done with dignity. You know, that they're not lucky to receive these free items, that we're lucky to be able to provide. You know,
I'm
for these
so
families.
glad that you're giving out chicken.
Yes,
and not
yes,
turkey.
and not turkey.
That
Right.
is such a misconception
It
that
is.
everybody, and that's just a good example of how we think we can help people by giving them what we think they need,
Right.
and instead of what they really
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
What a beautiful example. And for the audience today, there's still room for other companies to join.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a way to relieve the pressure of gift giving, because I think I personally feel I don't think any of the members of my family need anything
Right.
else.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find something for people that have everything.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, these programs are prevalent around the holidays, right? These organizations need these things all year long. So that's they need things all year long. But one of the things that we talk to our kids about is, let's talk about a wish list for somebody else. What can we do for other people? For me, that relieves stress, to be able to do things for other people. We look forward to that, you know, to be able to give back and to give of ourselves. We think of different ways that we can give of ourselves. Sometimes it's not just, you know, a gift. Sometimes it's a talent. Sometimes it's time. You know, we give back in other ways. In fact, I'm dealing with, you can adopt a senior, you know, at senior living communities, you know, and go in and read with them, talk to them, have dinner with them, things like that. So these are all things that, you know, people look forward to. It needs to happen all year round, but especially during the holidays.
But it's also, you know, from in the office perspective, you know, that gift giving to one another from employee peer to peer within, you know, the company. And I think that's a struggle that, you know, not just at home, so you're dealing with it then, but then also in the workplace. And, you know, there's some people, you know, who still have the expectation that, you know, you're going to give gifts. So it's always that one employee that gives gifts to everyone. There's the one employee that doesn't. And, you know, gift giving in the holiday, though, is also very personal. It's cultural. And there are, you know, cultures that do not give gifts. They do not celebrate, you know, Christmas or, you know, Hanukkah, or, you know, they don't celebrate, you know, Kwanzaa. And so companies now also, you know, are trying to decide, you know, what is it that you do? And I think from a service perspective, I know that MS has done 2 activities in recent years that have been, we'll call it non-denominational, you know, and purely just in the spirit of service. And one was building bikes for children that don't have them. We made it a team building activity. The whole organization came together. It was like a contest amongst, you know, to win the pieces to build the bikes. And it was great. And that's how we did, you know, one quote unquote holiday event. The other one we did was putting together household goods for people who were just starting up their homes. And so you had different teams. You know, one would put together kitchen supplies. One would put together, you know, bedroom supplies, like sheets and linens and things like that. And, you know, yes, the company did purchase these things and, you know, offered them to the staff to put together, but it was just a lot of fun. And it changed the dynamic again away from what are we giving to each other, what can we afford to give to each other, and what can we do for other people. I think the other thing I wanted to say, too, though, is that we still, you know, we'll try to have these holiday, you know, Christmas parties. We want to do like the Secret Santas and things like that. And so there's also, I think, ways that managers can help address those expectations and those things in the office that, again, do seem to define us as what we believe in and who we are, by making them more events that the employees decide that they want to put together, by, you know, having things done more anonymously in terms of the just even decision of whether to have gift giving or not. And so there's lots of things I think that managers can do to ease that stress as well.
It's a great idea. What a beautiful project to make bikes and useful things for people who actually need them.
And listening to the people who we think are in need. You know, what do they need or want? Not what we think and we would feel good giving.
Don't bring turkey.
Don't bring turkey. Not everybody wants turkey.
It took a long time to figure that out, because I bet they have been receiving turkeys for a very long time.
And the thing is that people are so grateful that they get the turkey, right? But then as the benefactor or the person who's giving, not the benefactor, the person who is giving of these items, I'm giving them because my heart is in the right place. I want to help people and I want to give this thing. But also, I would want to know if they don't want it, so I can give it to somebody maybe who does. You know, things like that. So it was a cycle where people were keeping it because they felt, you know, grateful. It takes up a lot of room in your refrigerator. They're heavy. They don't want to eat it. They try to find somebody else to give it to. So this is a great happy medium.
Well, as someone who doesn't like turkey, I appreciate that very much. I just don't like it. I just don't like turkey. But, you know, and then I just wanted to share another example of what, you know, my organization does right now. So now we kind of do this traditional just mix and mingle event. So it's not necessarily, you know, it's done in the wintertime. But, you know, every employee gets a gift card that they can use. And we are very close to Rockville Town Square. And so employees can go to Rockville Town Square. They are free to go to whatever establishment that's down there. There's lots of places. There's ice skating. Yeah. You know, there's the movies. There's, you know, a lot of restaurants and things. But then we also set up a donation area in Rockville Town Square where as employees are out, should they desire to donate, they can bring something from home. They can get something from one of the shops. A lot of the employees actually choose to donate the gift cards that they've been given or use those to shop for someone who may need things, and that is another great way to build up just from a team perspective, to socialize, to mix with other people, and also, again, to just celebrate the spirit of, you know, kind of the end of the year and the whole idea of gift giving, if that's what you choose. It's a really good time.
It's a beautiful way to shift the pressure of the holidays into something positive that we all feel good about.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what Wiley and Jennifer have both shared is the kind of giving that is meaningful instead of, well, it's just one more thing I've got. And giving people the freedom to volunteer and or opt out, you know, is really important. When I hear socializing somewhere as an introvert, I'm looking for the corner. So that doesn't always appeal to me, but finding people for whom that does energize and that really makes a connection is important. The other issue, too, that's kind of swirling through all of this is that finding that middle ground in the workplace between kind of individual expression of the holidays versus the need for institutional neutrality, that the workplace can't favor one religion or one holiday expression over others, while at the same time being able to give people maybe the chance at their desk or their cubicle or in their office to celebrate it. But the public spaces, you know, there's a real question about how those are managed during the holiday season in a way that's fair to everyone who's a part of your organization.
And one nice thing to do, and again, this goes back to the power of the employee, allow your employees to contribute things to decorate there. So if you have an area within your organization and you do want to celebrate your holiday, similar to a potluck, where you'd ask someone to bring a dish that's meaningful to them, you ask people from a holiday perspective, you know, or this season to bring something that's meaningful to them and that they would like to have displayed in a certain area. So again, if you make it employee driven, then you are more likely to have an environment that everyone does appreciate and acknowledge and feel like they're a part of because they helped to build it. And then the other thing I wanted to say, Kip, about the ability to opt out. I think that is so important to try to create environments where if people decide to opt out, if people decide, I do not want to go to the potluck, I want to go to the potluck, you know, but I'm not going to eat. I just want to go and socialize. I, you know, don't want to bring a gift. I don't want to, you know, whatever it is, it's okay. There were so many different reasons. I touched about, you know, on them in the beginning, why people choose not to participate. And it doesn't mean that they don't want to be around, you know, necessarily you or their teammates. It doesn't mean, you know, that anything more than they have a personal reason that says that they feel more comfortable not participating. And that's quite all right. And we just need to make sure that as managers we understand that, allow people to feel comfortable doing that. And, you know, I think that also makes for a definitely better and more cohesive environment.
1 year here at Montgomery Hospice, we have about 300 employees, and it's a very diverse team from all over the world. So we did a potluck, and people cooked dishes from their own countries. I think we ate better than ever in our lives. I mean, people were so proud to share their own traditions, and the flavors were amazing. And as you said, Jennifer, not everybody was forced to cook, or to come, but those that were there were really enjoying themselves. You remember that? Kid?
Oh, I remember it well.
Yeah. So the option of opting out, but also ideas to share in a loving way. So before we go to the next slide, we have to address the problem with work-life balance.
I read just last week an interview with Amy Howe, who's president of Ticketmaster North Atlantic, and she said in the interview she doesn't care for the phrase work-life balance because it's really an impossible ideal. It implies that no matter what time of year or what time of day, we're always kind of balanced, and that's just not our reality. All of us know there are times at work where we've got to stretch or push. So the key is not balance. I think it's more resilience. How do we kind of build in time to recover? We'll do around my department. It's a little bit humorous, but it's also has some seriousness to it. When I check in, I'll say on a level of 1 to 10, what's your energy level this morning? And there's a kind of an acknowledgement that some mornings I'm a 10 and I'm ready to go. But if I had a holiday celebration last week or last night, I may be at a 5 or 6, and that's okay. That's where I'm at today, and I'll find a good way to make that work. So it's important to kind of move away from the impossibility. It's kind of a tyrannical ideal balance. Life is too unpredictable for us to aspire to that ideal. But being able to recover and find resilience when we need it. And knowing in advance, if I'm going to be traveling a lot and being with my family for a number of days, on the back end of that, I may build in a day of just being low-key or being down. It's my chance to kind of recover. So I think that's important to find that resilience you need, particularly in the holiday season.
And from a corporate perspective, that's extremely correct in terms of the personal and being able to find that right ability to handle, the workload as well as the things that you need to do to take care of yourself personally. And from the work perspective, again, it goes back to what is it that companies and managers can do to have that happen. And, we've talked in the past about telecommuting. We've talked in the past about working remotely and using technology that allows us to do that. Because when I think of work-life balance, I think of just the ability to be able to take care of those things in a manner that is not stressful. So, for instance, if I can be at home because I need to be at home for a couple of hours or all day to take care of something, can I work effectively from there? Am I worried about, oh my gosh, I have to send an email, or do I have the technology ready for me to do that? And is my manager okay with me doing that? If I have to be at work, do I have time to step away and maybe make a personal phone call? Maybe I need to schedule something. Maybe I need to buy something on Amazon because, it's the last time that I can buy something. Do I just have the time, in order to do that? And so just having the flexibility to be able to do that, having the wellness rooms. Maybe I am, as you said, it's just one of those days where my energy level is not high. Is there a place I can go, during my lunch break for 10 minutes and just step away, and rejuvenate? Is there a gym in the building that I can use? One of the things I think also plays a huge role in this, I'm going to go back to food really quickly, is how much sugary, carbohydrate-ridden food is my company making available because it's the holidays. That's also not doing much to help my energy levels. You get into that carb, cycle, and, the food is just ridiculous. And so even as an organization, putting out fruits, putting out things that actually won't spike those glucose levels as much, it's, actually goes a very long way in terms of just keeping those energy levels up too.
Absolutely. That's such an important point. And I wish we had more research on the effects of these large amounts of sugar during the holidays, because you get a high and then you crash, and then you do that so intensively.
Well, I can tell you that my children would resist this conversation.
They
They do not want any research into anything but how to get more candy in the stocking.
Yeah, well, we come off of Halloween, and we just keep on going, and it does make a difference in your mood. It makes it just.
It does. I have to say too, as we talk about different things that companies and managers at companies can do, keeping in mind the smaller organizations too, who might not have the resources to provide, the different things that maybe we're used to at some of the larger companies. But there are still things that they can do that are meaningful, that's meaningful for their employees. And I know Jennifer can speak to that, and Kip, from an HR perspective. But I've worked in large and small, and we're a smaller one right now. But you think of different ways to support your employees, again, from their perspective and what they need. And again, having the flexibility to work from home. We're realistic about that at Leadership Montgomery. You might need to be home because your child has a half day at school. We had a half day Friday, yesterday, and today. Yep. Because of parent-teacher conferences. Yep. But I know because there's been, communication well beforehand. C. Marie at our team meeting, I think it was just last week, maybe even the week before, talked about, figuring out how many days you have left. There are certain days you can't, move over into the new year. Do you have to take those now? Having office coverage and what that looks like and what it means, and communicating with each other. But so there are many different ways that even smaller organizations can support their employees. I remember I was at another small organization and we would have these big Christmas parties. And the employees said, man, instead of spending money on that party, can you divide the money up amongst us, and can we each get an extra $20 even? That could, be the deciding factor between whether I get this garnish or whatever for my dinner, different things like that. So really taking the pulse of your staff and figuring out what can be done. Even if it is a potluck, can go a long way as well. It's a lot of fun, where people can share their cultures and you're just sitting around and you're de-stressing and talking, and the conversation might even go to, tell me what to do about these family members that are about to show up at my house. Help me out. What are the best practices that people have to share? Yeah. But there are certainly lots of different things, again, that smaller organizations can do to support their employees during the holiday times that are not expensive, but that are meaningful.
Yeah, I would add just a couple of other to these really great ideas. And one is, I think even smaller companies can do something like flex. So if you've got employees that really had a long day the day before, maybe work 2 or 3 extra hours, giving them the availability to come in a little bit later the next morning, or take off a little bit earlier the next day, can just create that more of an environment of self-care and the importance of that. Also, and sometimes this can be a small thing, but when a holiday's coming like Thanksgiving, giving someone the ability to have a shorter day on the day before Thanksgiving, particularly if people are traveling to be with family, even just 2 hours early can sometimes make a huge difference for someone that's trying to get their Thanksgiving plans together.
And I would even add, it might sound contrary, but, the ability to work overtime. For a lot of people, just having, again, flexibility to work more hours and earn more if that's what they desire and that's what they want. There's, some employees who potentially don't celebrate the holidays and would prefer to be working. Is there a way to accommodate that as well? And so that's just something also to think about. And then another kind of neat idea, and usually does not cost anything, except for a donation if companies are able to provide that, is bringing in therapy dogs to the office. Talk about a fantastic stress reliever. These organizations are always happy to bring in dogs, and, they walk down the hall or have them in a room that people can come and visit them, and it just changed the whole atmosphere of an organization in an instant. So that's something that I know our employees always look forward to.
And we are well aware of that because some of the therapy dogs that go to patients' homes come and visit here in the office every once in a while, and it's really effective. It's very calming. And
that's nice, and that is free. That's a really nice idea.
Well, we are moving to the next slide, which is what forms can grief take during the holidays?
So it can be a number of things here. I think for a lot of people, nostalgia kind of weighs heavy at the holiday season. The layers of year after year of being with family and special experiences. And that can be very thick. And of course, we're surrounded by holiday music and decorations, and it's ubiquitous throughout our culture. And just kind of recognizing that, because that can sometimes come with tinges of regret in the past, previous losses that now become much more tender at a time like this. There can be triggers. We may hear a song and Oh, yeah, that was my mom's favorite song, or even a smell. Oh, she loved that dish. And so being aware that those kinds of triggers are all around us during the holiday season and going gently with ourselves when we know those triggers have been happening.
With ourselves and with those around us, because sometimes you may not know why somebody you're working with is being in such a bad mood, and probably is related to some trigger that, music penetrates you and smells just, you inhale them. There's no way to protect yourself from those triggers.
It can also, kind of happen the opposite. There may be someone who's just kind of going through a transition. Maybe they've been recently, divorced. Maybe, this is the first holiday season that, parts of the family that they would normally, be around, they're not. And so maybe it's the opposite, and they're actually seeking, companionship. They're seeking socialization. And so, you're trying to figure out, why does this employee or staff member want this holiday party so bad? Why is it that, they're coming up with 20,000 things that everyone can do, and being so insistent upon it? So it could even speak to that as well.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, we have at our elementary school a mom who just lost her 4-year-old child, and his fourth grader sister goes to our school, and so we've put together a GoFundMe for that family, because they're still dealing with the after effects of really expensive medications and treatments. So they've lost their child. They're going into the holiday season not having, their child for the first time, and the siblings and things like that. And then having all these bills that are just not going to go away. Right. And so we've been very aware of, first of all, not overwhelming this family with, what do you need, because we don't want to put the onus on her to figure that out. We also have been, I hope, sensitive about, not having that family manage everyone else's grief. We all think we know, what she must be going through, losing her son. We don't, because we haven't lost our own child. As parents, we feel like, it would be horrible, and I'm sure it would. However, we don't want to put that on her, to have to manage our grief and to have to make us feel better. So she's, put the verbiage for the GoFundMe for us, and so people are able to do that. But I can't imagine that feeling of grief and of loss, especially with the things that we put, the importance that we put on these holiday seasons, to not, for better or worse, whatever it is. But, to have that. So, we don't know why people behave the way they do, especially around this time. But like Jennifer said, good or bad, but to just be cognizant that, I think, to go into it with a positive mind frame that we all want good, so however a person may be acting, give them space, give them time, and give them a break.
Yeah. And if there's resources, offer them, so if, any organization has, for instance, an EAP program, this is the time of the year to, we should be communicating about your EAP all year, but the EAP programs, put out information specifically geared to managing stress around the holidays. A lot of those things even are free. And so to bring in, either have a webinar or bring in people from the EAP program to have conversations and seminars for your staff. We do that, every holiday season before. We bring in the resources that are already funded through our EAP program and have those conversations. So again, we all know this time of the year is stressful, and sometimes it's stressful just to know the stress is coming. You just know what's going to come. So why not give your staff resources, that can help in times of the general stress that we feel, but the unfortunate situations where the things that happen are pretty awful, and things that we can't understand, but hopefully there's professionals out there that can provide those resources too for those individuals.
Yeah, I think with people who's grieving, it's really important to not assume and to ask.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get in trouble when we assume about what someone who's grieving might need or might want. And oftentimes what I hear from grieving people is it feels like a relief to be at work and to focus on something else for a little while. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the last thing they want is extra attention. Oh, let's pull them out and have everybody kind of give them extra attention. And that's not what they want. Like, it's already overwhelming enough. They just want some normality sometimes because they're carrying the other stuff, and it will come through in other ways. So asking is a simple question as, I can imagine these are difficult days for you. Do you want to talk about that? Or do you want to kind of talk about what the task is we've got in front of us?
Yeah,
So giving them the choice of whether or not they want to talk about something in a moment, or if they just kind of want to be straightforward and do the work.
yeah, that's a great point, Kit, because another thing that happened recently is we have a person who participated in one of the LM leadership programs. I think she may have been on core, and is sick and is facing treatment from cancer. And so she doesn't know what her energy levels are going to be on any given day. However, she reached out and spoke to one of my colleagues and said, I need to be of use. I want to think of something other than my illness and, to get out of my own head. And I don't know how I'm going to be feeling any given day, but are there opportunities where I can give back? Can I be involved in something that the CDC is doing? And so my colleague told her about our holiday giving project, and she said, if you're up for it on this day, you can come in and volunteer as many hours as you want. We're going to be there from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And she was so excited. She said, oh my gosh, she's looking forward to it. She has something to look forward to. And if she, she feels like she's trying to get her mind ready to try and have the energy, prayerfully she will. But, she's looking forward to giving of herself, of her time. And it's really great to have something like that to look forward to, as she's dealing with this illness. But, it does it for me, to be able to focus on others. And so she's able to do that, and that's great.
Grief can be such a disempowering feeling. Anything that empowers you or might energize you a little bit, there are a number of people that find that to just be very helpful in their grief journey.
And one of the things that we have been thinking about at Montgomery Hospice is to offer a class for managers, right, on how to manage grief in the workplace. Mm-hmm. Because we find that sometimes many of us are ill-equipped to even have those conversations. What is the right thing to say? Yeah. Should I stay silent? Should I assume? So maybe next year.
Yeah. How do you receive someone that has had a great loss and they come back to work? Right. What do you say? Things like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a middle ground between, on the one hand, the old adage, just leave that stuff at home, which doesn't work anymore, in the workplace. And on the other hand, we're not saying managers need to become grief counselors.
Right.
So there's got to be middle room where you can treat someone humanly, responsibly, caringly, in a way that's good for them and good for the workplace. Mm-hmm. And that's that middle ground, I think, that we're trying to carve out.
Absolutely. And the way that you handle that situation as a manager and the way that you are communicating with that person, the rest of your staff see that, and that goes a long way in terms of just building their comfort level and their ability to come to you should they need help for something that might happen in the future. And, as I think we're saying, it does not mean that you're not expecting or you don't have any expectations regarding work performance and work product. But it's that you are being open, you're being communicative, you are being human in terms of those expectations, in terms of what needs to be done, and having those conversations in that manner. Absolutely.
So we are transitioning, and I think we've been talking about this topic all along. How can managers support their employees at this time? Mm-hmm. So we talked about flexible hours, allowing them to leave early, to go home, off, or to work overtime if that's what is needed at that moment.
Or to opt out.
Or to opt out. Yeah. Exactly. So we have a study by Accenture that found that 54% of surveyed workers reported that flexible hours during the holidays would help alleviate the stress.
Yeah, nothing like being able to shop at Sam's Club without a crowd, right? So instead of going to work for 9 a.m., if you get to Sam's Club for 9 a.m., that's awesome.
That is so true. And, managers then are faced also with the daunting task of, that's great, but now I have 10 people who all want to take the same time off, because when it comes to the holidays, there are those times. So how do you then balance, right. the 10 requests that are all for the same day at the same time? Yeah. And I always say with transparency, and fairness.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even, you know, and so in that way, communicating what the expectations are ahead of time. And again, you know, we're all good managers. We've been doing that all along, and we've always communicated that, you know, there always needs to be some sort of coverage. You know, it's then, you know, looking at every person's situation and making sure there's just equal time provided. And if you have 10 people and they all want, you know, the same day, it's communicating that fact.
Yeah.
You know, and then communicating why the decision was made. And as a manager, the biggest thing I always say too is model the same behavior. So don't be the, you know, you don't want to be a manager that tells everyone else you have to stay, but then you go shopping at Sam's Club, you know? So, you know, and so, you know, just making sure that you model that behavior too. And, you know, there are especially times during the holidays, if I have time, you know, extra time, that may not necessarily call for me to be in the office, but I know that there are people there because they need to be. I will be there too for some time, just to be with them, to let them see that, hey, I'm still here, I'm still working alongside with you. Or even things like those positions where they must be there because of their roles, you know, have pizza brought in. You know, have, you know, what are those little extras that you can provide those people that really, because of their job duties, and yes, they chose the job, that is their job duty, but it still doesn't mean that they wouldn't mind the extra appreciation. And those things go a very, leaving a candy bar, I know I just talked about not having candy, but leaving a candy bar, you know, or something just on their desk to say, thank you so much for coming in. Those little surprises go a long way.
Yeah.
Yes, for instance, we do that at Casey House, which is our inpatient unit, and we cook a meal for Thanksgiving, but it's for everybody, work, their families, everybody. Same during the December holidays as well.
Yeah, I want to echo what Jennifer said about transparency and how huge that is. I think most of our staffs get that there are certain basic needs around coverage and work that needs to get done. And if we can convey that in a very transparent, open way and say, for example, for my staff, well, we're going to need office coverage when our office is open for calls that come in and like that. And then say, how can we then accommodate as much as we can around that for what people need in terms of being off, and then find ways to show appreciation for people.
I need to tell actually one story about, you know, so when I first started working, I was the receptionist. That was my very first job. I was the receptionist. And, you know, this was even before automated, you know, phone lines. And the receptionist to me always seemed to get the short end of the deal. You know, anytime there was a special event going on, there was a holiday party, there was something, the receptionist had to stay at the front desk. And so maybe it's because I started out that way and I know how it feels, but one of the things I always do is I look for those positions that never seem to get that break, like the receptionist, you know, like, you know, and make sure that there is a way for them to meaningfully participate in those things. If the company closes for a half a day, you know, the receptionist should be able to leave too. And now we have those types of automated things. But if it's a potluck, if it's a gift exchange, if it's a service activity, so we've made sure that we've trained up other staff within the organization that are outside of that group and department that can at least provide that minimal coverage so that everyone can participate. That also goes a very long way.
It does.
That's great.
That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Not leave anybody out of these celebrations.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to also how leadership handles things. Like, that's a great way for leadership to handle things. You know, and I think that if leadership is modeling that behavior, we're all adults. I'm not saying that, you know, leadership has to show us how to behave and grow us up. But I'm just saying that if it creates a work environment that is conducive to positivity. And so that should things arise that aren't necessarily, you know, great, we can deal with them in a positive manner because that's just the way our culture is what I'm saying. And so it brings to mind something that I probably shared before, but I worked for a healthcare organization a while ago where there was we were a small group, and there was a woman who was a Jehovah's Witness. And she was a Jehovah's Witness. It doesn't matter what she was, but she did not celebrate. You know, she didn't participate in religious things. And so we were all talking about coverage and, you know, what to do. And so several women said that they wanted off the day after Christmas and the day before Christmas. And of course, the office was closed on Christmas Day. And so she put her hat in the ring because people assumed that she wouldn't because of they knew her religious preferences and things like that. And so, so one woman just boldly turned to her and said, "Well, you don't even celebrate it. You don't care about this stuff. What do you care? This is not even. You don't even do anything religious. You know, we deserve to be off. You don't." And because of the way she was approached, she threw her hat in the ring to be off those days. She worked closest to the office. And typically, she would offer to cover whatever and then be off at a different time during the year. But because of the way they approached her and because of the way she was talked to and there were assumptions made, she said, "No, I'm going to be off too." And so it might have been me or somebody else, I don't know, who said, "You know what, let's just split this between the two of us. We'll make this work." But I believe, again, that if she had been approached with kindness, you know, and assumptions hadn't been made, she would have said, "Oh, I'll come in. I live right here," because she's done it in the past. So I think that we need to give people grace with that sort of thing, like Jennifer was saying.
And that's a beautiful segue to the last part of our discussion today, which is how does the company deal with different religious traditions? Do we have a dialogue with the employees on what to do? Just do parties?
I think we kind of touched base, with some ideas, in terms of, number one, how can you celebrate at this time of the year without necessarily, marking it as, Christmas or, anything like that. And I think that, again, it's, just it can be a winter, celebration. You can ask people to bring whatever's meaningful to them, like we talked about. You can turn it into a service activity. You can turn it into a mix and mingle. I mean, the fact that we feel like we need to label it, I think is where we sometimes can even just do ourselves a disservice. You can just call it a winter gathering or a gathering, and let it be, just that. Of course, people still want to have, I know, like in organizations, they still want to have like the ugly sweater contest, and things like that. And that's fine because your ugly sweater does not have anything to do with the holiday that you celebrate
Ugly
potentially.
comes in all
It can just,
forms.
right, it can just be ugly. I personally like to wear the sweaters that are like borderline. It's kind of like, do we say that she's wearing an ugly sweater or not? Not sure. So I always like to wear those to see what people say to those types of things. But yeah, so there's lots of different ways, and I think we even talked about just the ability to have someone opt out. Some people personally just don't even like potlucks just because they don't want to eat food that's come from places other than what and that's just their personal preference.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah. So not labeling it, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I would also add, as part of this, that company leadership needs to think through what's going to be fair in terms of the public spaces in an organization. For example, are we going to have a tree in the lobby? If we are we also going to have a menorah? Are we going to have other religious traditions represented? Or are we going to agree that we'll have something just winter related that's not any particular religious tradition? But it's really important that all staff feel like the company's being fair in regard to how that's even expressed or not expressed. And here at Montgomery Hospice, what we do is allow a great deal of freedom of expression at someone's desk or in their cubicle or in their office. But the public places, we do not have religious expression in. They're more seasonal kinds of things. And that's kind of worked for us over the last few years. But each company's got to figure that out, how you want to do that, and listen to your staff in the meantime about that.
Create an attitude that is inclusive and respecting everybody's traditions. Here's the right thing to do, not to be stuck in, I want to celebrate this way. And it takes time, I think, and an effort to move groups through that.
Especially when you have those traditions that have been in your organization for a very long time. And so, moving groups through that, again, communicating, decisions when they're made. It's also very interesting, even from those organizations that, let's just say from a business perspective, many companies that used to shut down over the holidays do not do that anymore. A lot of it's financially driven, but to see the people who have been used to that for a very long time, and now that has changed, It's just the feeling that something's been taken away, that things are changing. Again, it's just very hard for employees to make that transition. So being with them in that and discontinuing those lines of communication to explain why things are changing, how they're changing, and what they're changing to, as they can see and envision, the ideas that you're trying to bring about.
Right. So our time is up. Our last slide is tips for coping with stress and depression during the holidays. So we are saying 5 things here. Acknowledge your feelings, have realistic expectations, stick to a budget. I don't think we touched that one, but that's a good idea. Learn to say no.
Yeah.
And draw boundaries and plan ahead so that the holiday season is a happy season for everybody. We invite the audience to ask questions on the chat box. And it's been a great pleasure to embark in this adventure with all these beautiful partners in crime. And we hope to continue the discussions of wellness in the workplace next year. Maybe we'll find other topics, and we're going to rely on an audience to help us find other topics that you may want to hear about. And so we invite, you can provide us this feedback when we send the evaluation to you. I also want to announce that we're going to have another webinar on how the holidays affect us. Right, Kip?
Music in the holidays?
Music in the holidays. So we're going to invite people to talk about that, totally related to grief and how those triggers can affect. We're going to have some of our music therapists talk about what happens in the brain when these triggers trigger you. So we thank our audience. If there's any questions, I don't see any questions. But 1 more minute for more questions. We are right on time, 12:01. We're going to fax you the evaluation or send the evaluation somehow. Thank you very much for your attention today. I'm going to go offline. The evaluation link is being sent to you on the chat box. We're also emailing that to all participants. Thank you for joining us today. Have a recording sent out to the people who sign up for the webinar but were not able to join. Another upcoming program that we have is Advanced Care Planning. And this is for Chinese Americans, and this is the Chinese American perspective on December 4th. And the one that, the Chinese Americans perspective on advanced care planning is on November 19th. And on December 4th, we have Managing Grief and Loss Through the Holidays. These are songs, stories, and music therapy. And we invite all of you to join us for those. Thank you very much for your attention today, and you will hear from us soon. And may your holiday season be restful, and may you find time to enjoy the holidays as best you can. Thank you.